Welcome to the Reliability U podcast with Brett Scott and Adam Lunt, where we talk about all things reliability. Stay tuned. Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the merchandise studio. We have hats now. We've got tumblers. We've got water bottles. Brett, I see you got a shirt.
Yeah.
Mine's in the dryer. Otherwise, I would have had it on tonight. It was a touch on the damp side. We also we've spent the last 2 weeks, because if anyone who's out there actually listening to this might have noticed, we haven't been here for a couple weeks. We have been working long and hard on getting the studio set up and ready to go. Actually invested in some new microphones, some mixing equipment, some
First time trying them.
Yeah,
tonight, so
trying them out tonight. So feedback is always appreciated on. Yeah, if somebody comes back and says it's like, dude, we can't tell the difference.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to be pissed because
Yeah.
it wasn't cheap.
exactly. We put a little time and
Yeah.
sweat into this too. So
Yeah, we spent some time down here working, actually putting a studio together too. So we have a dedicated place to do these. So it's not always, trying to find a hotel conference room or,
yeah, garage,
the garage or wherever we can set up to
whatever.
get one recorded.
Yeah,
Did some sound isolation, some baffling. It's, I think it's working out so far. It's homey.
yeah.
I guess.
We shall see.
We shall. So, since it has been a couple weeks, catch us up on your life.
Busy as always. Last couple weeks actually been able to be home, not on the road. So, but that doesn't mean no work. That just means the work is different. It's housework, cutting firewood, so on.
Did you ever get that tree cut up?
Most of it, but this one was so big that my 18-inch bar, even going from both sides, you can't get it. So this thing was gigantic. So there's going to be some that's left over I might chip away at later, but I think I got plenty of firewood. So
I've noticed you're down about 20 pounds.
the back breaking work, yeah, it is a lot of work. But I haven't spent a dime on propane or heating, so you can't can't beat that.
No, I'm not a wood burner around here. I mean, I definitely would. If my insurance guys, I see what I did there. If my insurance guys listening to this, disregard. I'm not putting a wood stove in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like that.
No,
mine's outdoors, so I'm
right.
safe, but.
I'd love to have one. I mean, there's nothing that just, penetrates the bones like good wood heat.
And going through the floor, it's like step out of the shower. Once you
Right.
get off that mat, that heat coming up through, that's fantastic. But,
Which we've got the heated floors upstairs in the kitchen, which I know there's been a couple years that, because we've got the old thermostats, the old mercury knob ones, because there's like 8 of them in the house for the different zones on the boiler. I know that thing's got bumped before because it's right at the top of my basement stairs. You walk down, you'll brush it with your shoulder.
yeah.
You'll get up in the morning, walk down there barefoot, and it about melts
Yeah.
the skin on your feet to the tile.
Yeah.
And it's only that one room, so you walk through the dining room and it's like freezing. Then you step on there, it'll melt flesh.
That's where the cats like to nap, is that nice warm floor like that, too.
Hell, the cats, I've went down there and seen Henry asleep on there. The kids lay up there and do their homework on the floor. They love it in the winter.
Yeah, it is. It is a nice heat, though. Nice even heat when it's floor heat, but.
No, and I'm hoping we might not even need that much heat this year. I mean, we're
I know.
middle of November and it's
Exactly.
65 out?
Yeah, I think, in matter of fact, I think I saw 70 this weekend coming up a couple days, so maybe one more round of golf to get in, too.
Let's do that. I went and picked the kids up from school today on the golf cart.
Yeah.
It's like, it was nice enough. Why not?
Well, and with it being sunny, too. It's a little windy, but the
Yeah.
sun, man, it just felt good today to be outside, so
Yeah.
I spent a little time out, but.
Well, let's loop back around and kind of pick up sort of where we left off. I guess. I know we've been, last guest, we kind of went off on the alignment thing.
Yeah.
We've talked about, we had a couple vibrations, and then obviously when we had Crocker on, it was general stuff,
Yeah.
which I really wish we would have talked to him more about, the use of photography
Yeah.
in reliability, because he's huge on that, like documentation and saving things in CMMS.
Well, he's welcome back to do
Yeah,
it.
he's 100% always welcome
Yeah.
back. We'll have to have him back on. I know, and actually Colin Mann reached out to me, I think it was last week, and he's like, what's a guy got to do to get back on the podcast? I'm like, well, let us do a few more before we start
Right.
recycling
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I don't want him to think like he's recycled material.
Right. But we got a lot of other people waiting too. So
Exactly. And I mean, and there's a lot of technologies,
yeah, there is.
you know.
And everybody has their own take on it too.
Yeah,
So, like, even if we did, we're going to have repeat stuff like vibration. It's going to be a topic that happens over and over. But other people's different points of views of how it works for them and their different stories of how it's helped them in we're going to have repeat stuff, but it's from a different angle, different people. So I
sure.
think that's the good part is having different people on here. If it was just us, yes, we'd be repeating the same stories and it'd get boring, but that's why we have people on here is
That's why we keep the
they can
intros to 10 minutes, because
exactly.
otherwise you'd
Yeah.
all hate us.
Yeah. Which, speaking of which, let's get on to this week's topic or and our guest. But this week, so like you said, we're done some vibration, done some alignment, we've done some of the
We did
motion
motion amplification.
amplification.
Yep.
This week, we've got somebody that's coming on that is expert in the field of lube oil analysis and lubrication. So
Because of the five primaries, which are,
we'll start off with the vibe,
yep,
IR, ultrasound, MCA or MCE, whichever you want to call it, but motor circuit evaluation, and then of course our lubrication lube oil analysis.
yeah.
So
Tribology is a really, I think, from what I've noticed, kind of an overlooked technology. Um,
it's
or
misunderstood.
or I misunderstood's a better thing, because I mean everybody does some level of it.
Yeah.
Whether it be they just hand a guy a grease gun and send him out there every 30 days to shoot 3 pumps of grease in every
Right.
bearing, or they're taking oil samples, but they're, reusing hoses and they're putting it in, solo fucking coffee
Right.
cups and stuff like that. There's a lot of misinterpretation
There
in
it
it,
is. Yeah,
but it's such a powerful technology.
it is.
And it can be used to diagnose so many problems. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
why, how many times have we said it? We're not the experts.
Right.
That's why we're going to bring one on that can actually tell you, shoot you straight on
Yeah.
the ups, the downs, the benefits, the pitfalls, etc. of tribology. So,
So yeah,
since you've worked with her longer than I have, would you like to?
yeah.
Why don't you welcome our guest?
Intro. So, yeah, this person I've known for, gosh, I probably shouldn't say. I don't want to age us, but we've worked together for a long time, years ago, working at various different, places, different contractors and things. But ever since I've known her, she's done vibration and like oil analysis stuff. Mostly spent most of her time in the oil analysis part, though. Traveled around a little bit. I think she's actually. We'll have to ask her where she's located right now. But she's down south.
I'm going to say Arkansas.
Might be, but we're
Maybe.
gonna find
I
out.
bet she knows.
I hope she does. I think she will. But anyway, without further ado, this person is Angie and Borella, and she's gonna be coming on here to make us a little bit smarter about lubrication type topics.
All right.
So,
Well, Angie, thanks for coming on.
welcome.
Hey guys, good to see you.
Likewise.
Thanks for having
So,
me.
yeah, what part of we were talking about this on the intro? What part of the country are you in right now?
I'm in Arkansas.
Oh, okay, he was right. I don't know why
I
was
told you.
thinking
Told you.
Georgia or something, but my memory sucks. But anyway,
That's valid.
yeah. Well, I think
Have you picked up the full-on Arkansas accent yet?
I don't think
Uh,
so. I mean, of course, I
Re-
was stuck in Georgia for a little bit and picked up an accent there, and then I'm pretty sure it's all the same across the map when you
yeah.
get south of Missouri.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in Georgia for a while.
But yeah, I was there for about
Oh,
5, 6 years.
okay, good. See, so I'm not
Okay.
just pulling stuff out of my ass.
I mean, you're still down,
No,
Well, yeah.
but
So,
him, not you.
right.
You're cool, but
But yeah,
him, he's
thank
it,
you.
dumb.
it can go unsaid. We all know that. But um, so you still doing oil analysis work?
I am. I am doing a little bit of everything. We wear a lot of hats with the company I work with, and we're into sales and marketing and oil testing and analysis, and a lot of customer relationships going on, and there's just you just get busy when you have that many customers.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
It
yeah,
keeps me busy for sure.
yeah.
How big of a territory do you cover?
Right now it's really all over the map.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, yes, and we also have our I guess, partner labs, and so they're all over the map as well, in other countries.
Okay.
So, we communicate with them guys quite frequently.
Do
Okay.
you travel a
Never a
lot?
dull
Or?
moment. No, no, I will when I am requested to go to a site, if maybe they want to, maybe look at their lube rooms or if they want to look at the equipment. I don't get a lot of that anymore, but I do still travel, to do some training. We do some in-person training, online training, and then, at times they just want us to come to their location because it's easier to send one people that, there than 15 people to somewhere else. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, how big is that place? Like, if you had to guess, do you know about like how many samples you guys like run through in a week or a day or a month
it's
or
getting up
whatever?
there. It's exceeded quite a bit since I've started. I've been, with this company for 7 years now, and I want to say it's right around anywhere between 16 to 1700 a day.
Holy cow!
A day?
Yeah, that's
A
crazy.
day.
And it's crazy that
Mhm.
you're the only one running those through there.
I know. I know. I don't know
Single-handedly
where my
feeding
Man,
team
them
is.
through the conveyor.
bravo! Holy cow!
I
Oh,
know
that's funny.
we've got a really good team, and they stay on top of things. So I think our lab can handle a lot more. I think at least probably 2,000. And
Okay.
the more you grow, the more instruments you just add to get it done.
Yeah. So you got a couple. You said you wear a couple different hats. Do you still do some of the actual like analysis part, like run the samples through the lab yourself, or?
I don't do any of the lab work because I'm remote most of the time.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I look at a lot of the data, handle a lot of the reporting, talking to customers, about their data, what they need to do, offer some, suggestions. And what I like about this place where I work is we can provide solutions and we have the means to do that. Um, we didn't really have that before, working at the plant. We were just kind of shooting at the hip, trying to figure out,
Yeah.
Right.
what we need to do along the way. And it's just nice to be in an environment to where you can learn from some of the best, that's been working in the field for a long time, and to have access to those solutions that, like I said, we didn't know. We
Yeah.
didn't
Right.
know half the things that, 30 years later, who would know
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
shit that we did? I'll tell you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, but we did, and him and I were talking about this when we were talking with Dustin last week. But um, we were talking about like the type of environment that we, I guess, basically cut our teeth in and grew up in, predictive wise, was even though at times it was hectic and we had, gosh, how many bosses, and 7 bosses in 7 years or something like that at one point at company A that we worked for. But my gosh.
Yeah,
But anyway, what was cool about that environment was though all the different technologies we had together where we could get everybody in one room and share that information. That's where I think if more people had programs like that where you were really working with each other, I think we'd have a lot better analysts out there in general. Because I know I've been some places
100%.
where they don't communicate well between I mean, not even just predictive world, but like the millwrights and mechanics and the lubrication guy and the lab and like everybody working together. That doesn't always work that way. It should, and you'd think it would, but it doesn't always work that way, and it makes for better analysts and better people when you do. So
I got a little
Yeah,
chuckle there
absolutely.
internally. For those of you who haven't seen the movie Office Space, great one.
uh,
It's like, I have eight
That was
bosses, Bob. It's
that
like
was
mhm.
eight
so
what
us.
eight bosses. That means every time I screw up, I get my ass chewed 8 times.
Yeah, we were kind of in that environment for a little while. It was like it's like, okay, who's it going to be this week, and
Right.
what changes are they going to want to make? But
Right.
anyway, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I never got the I don't know if you want to call it the privilege of working with you guys. I guess the jury's out on that one. But I never got to work with you guys out in, the previous days at different plants and whatnot, but I've heard all the stories from my dad.
yeah,
And so I kind of feel like I was, you know,
part of it through
kind of
You
there
were
by
part of the
proxy,
tribe even back
I,
then.
I kind of lived through him, I guess, but I never got the opportunity to do that stuff with you. But from an outsider looking in, and I came along probably, what do you think, 10 years behind you guys
probably,
ish?
yeah. Probably.
5 to 10 years behind. I was kind of I was the lagger, and I came in, and I still see a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
Even I feel like the culture hasn't changed, and it needs to 100%.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered why. Why have not people, or why haven't people realized? It's that old, adage of, what do they say? It's doing the same thing the same way
Uh,
time and time again. It's
Expecting different results.
yeah, it's the
That's
definition of insanity.
exactly.
And I feel like that still happens a lot. I mean, and I'll let you speak to this, Angie, way more than me. But how many times I've went in and I've had people say, "Hey, can you look at this sample?" And it's up and down and up and down and up and down as they trended over time with like a, wear particle count or whatnot. And you talk to them and it's like you look at a PM, the actual program they have built, and they have a different person doing it every time. Well, one time the guy's, using a 1/4 inch poly hose to suck the sample, single point, ties it in a knot, throws it in the trash. The next guy, trying to save a buck, just keeps reusing that hose because, 1/4 inch poly hose is expensive apparently. Um, and they can't figure out why they're not getting good results. And would you agree that it all comes down to when it comes down to the physical effort of sampling? I'm not talking about the science behind the sampling, but the guys in the field doing the work. You need an SOP, and you have to take the subjectivity out of it, take the I believe or I think out of it, and every person that's doing that job, because I don't care if you have the best oil sample guy in the world. Well, he takes vacations. He gets days off, and work can't stop because his wife's having a baby or whatever the case may be. And I feel like people have too much interpretation of the task at hand. Do you see that being a problem?
That's the problem. And we see it in the data. Every time we get a sample and when your particle counts are all over the place or you've got a lot of visible debris, that's typically because it's core sampling. It's not always that there's actually crud in the actual equipment. It's just getting in there when they take the sample.
Right.
We don't recommend drain samples. I mean, what we do, and we provide a 1 day free training just to go over sampling procedures and how important it is for contamination control. And, sometimes drop tube sampling is the only thing you can do. Sometimes taking it out of the drain is the only thing you can do. But if you do it, make sure that you're flushing, make sure you're
Yeah.
flushing your tube, things like that. Use gloves. Make sure you use a different sampling tube every time you take the sample.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we beat our heads against the wall wondering why there's hydraulic or gear oil in a sample, and while they were using the same, tube. And
Because they just
so,
ran the hydraulic gear by
Yeah.
hydraulic pumps. Yeah.
yeah. So you'll start seeing different additives in certain places, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
And
sampling can be a pain.
for sure. But you're right though. I mean, it all sounds like it's like nitpicking, like some of the things that you need to do to get a good sample. But when you actually start looking at results, it's kind of surprising how small of a uh, one small thing can make a big difference.
Oh,
And like I
yeah.
said, drain ports. I know a lot of places that are like, well, that's the only place we can get it from. Like, well, just so long as you know that you could be getting completely inaccurate data of what's actually going on in the machine, because that stuff's been sitting at the bottom forever, So, but yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done wrong in the sampling process, and I think that's where places that training part of it is very important because it's well similar to Vibe data collector. People assume, oh, it's easy. I put the magnet on there and I hit the button. Well, where you put that, how you collect it, what kind of magnet it was, what kind of transducer it was. Same thing with the oil analysis. What kind of equipment are we using? Are we drop tube sampling? Do we have pitot tubes or mini mesh valves, things like that? It makes a big difference. But it's
Now,
hard to get people to know what they're, how important that is until they get the training and start seeing the data.
now, and one thing, I'll ask just of you here, Brett, since we're on that point, because the whole premise behind why we're doing what we're doing with the reliability use stuff is, so people can learn and get better. Um, some people out there might not know, you just use like the phraseology, for example, the pitot tubes.
Yep.
Explain that for the people that don't.
Yeah. So pitot tubes and mini MS valves are pretty common oil sampling, like ports or connection fittings, I guess you could call it. Pitot tube is basically just a metal tube where you can thread it into somewhere on the either the sump or the reservoir or whatever, and you can bend that tube and cut it to whatever length you want. So
Mhm.
then when we put that tube in there, we can direct it to the correct level inside that. So it's pulling from the exact same spot at the same time. If we do drop tube sampling, as you guys know, that tubing comes off a roll and you try to get it straight
And
to
it
go
just
down.
curls
It
right up.
curls and it
Yep.
goes against the side and you're scraping sludge off the side. These pitot tubes were designed to keep it from the same spot every time, repeatability, and it's in the right spot. The mini mess valves are just a way outside of the box to connect however we're going to get it
Yep.
from the reservoir to the bottle,
Okay.
be tubing, or you can still use vacuum samplers, but it's going through a mini mess valve that is just a spring loaded, usually type of a valve that you can connect to, so there's no outside contaminants getting in.
And I ask those questions because me being a pilot, a pitot tube is how I tell what my airspeed is.
Huh. Well, it's probably very similar. I'm
It's a
assuming
static
metal.
port versus forced
Sure.
air intake. And
Yeah.
so, people are like, pitot tube, that's not
Hmm.
what we're used to, a pitot tube. Because we think of them as more like a Venturi, like on a
Yeah.
carburetor or something like that would be.
Sure.
But no, I think that's great. And asking those questions too, Angie, and I'll defer to you on these because, you being the expert on this stuff. I've been working a ton here recently. We're just about ready to release the book, but been working with Joe Anderson over at Reliability X on rewriting a bunch of best practice manuals and kind of updating things along the way. So I'm kind of on this, I don't know if you want to call it a tirade or whatever, but I guess I would kind of on doing these best practices as to where best practices have been written as you know, do this. Well, it turns out it's just a bunch of metrics um, and KPIs, and there's not actually any best practices there. How do we get to those positive KPIs and how do we get to those, good metrics? Like, because, for example, um, PM compliance, that's not a best practice, that's a metric. And in my opinion, it's a worthless metric because if all you're trying to do is get your metrics in the green and your KPIs in the green, you're just going to pencil whip more, PMs to get there. So I think a lot of the data is flawed. So from your field experience and all the experience you have, throw just a handful that it doesn't need to be an all inclusive, list. But what are some best practices when you go to collect oil samples? Excuse me. Some. What are some tangible things that people can do tomorrow to make their sampling better?
So what we did when we first started out, this was before we had pitot tubes and sampling devices. This was cutting the tubes to certain length, getting everything ready in the office rather than trying to do those things out in the field when it's dusty,
Yeah.
dirty, and they're going to get crud all over them. Use gloves, wipe off the equipment before you take the sample. If you're going to have to take a drop tube, because as soon as you take off like cap, there's going to be crud that just drops down in there. And that's why we preach the best practices. Get a hydraulic or a gearbox adapter, put some breathers on it, put your sampling devices on there. If you're going to go do some filtration, hook it up with your quick disconnects so you can, do all of those things. We've got modification plans. Deskcase is great at it. Pretty much you just give them a model and they'll, work something out with you. A lot of these people came from Noria, so they've been out
Right.
in the plants and that's what they've been doing. Yeah, just, you got to try to keep it as clean as possible. And I know working in some of the places that we've worked, it was never clean and it was hard to keep clean,
Yeah.
when you got products
Yeah.
spilling all over everything. But once you do get those things modified, once you do start the filtration, it's a whole new ball game. I mean, it took us 10 years to get 2,000 rotating machines modified. And,
Yeah.
sometimes it was very difficult, because of the way they were, installed in the plant. And sometimes we always didn't really know what we were doing. But um, I do know that the failures decrease. I mean, I don't even know. At the time, it had to be significant, compared to what we were doing before. And I remember the naysayers saying, "Why are we spending all this money on these gearboxes? Have been out here for 20 years and blah blah blah." And I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they may be there another 20 years if you guys continue, do this type of
Right.
Yeah.
work and be a
Treat
little
them
bit more
right. Yeah.
proactive.
So there was
But
a guy I used to
yeah,
work
it's been a
with,
long way.
and Brett and I actually both used to work with him. Um, so they had really implemented. They were going through this whole oil cleanliness push, and they were even going to the point where they were, filtering new barrels when they came in to make sure they were meeting ISO codes. They're taking baseline samples, sending them off to the lab, the whole 9 yards, and they got. I think at the time they had I can't remember, it was either 6 or 9 of the bulk storage containers. The stackable, what are they, 300?
Yeah. To the big tote
Yeah,
style.
big
Square.
the big square tote
Yeah.
style ones. And they'd put, desk and breathers on those to keep moisture out of them. I mean, they're doing well. But then, and this was, I don't know, 10 years ago. And at this point, like, I don't know shit about this at this point. Like I'm very new, kind of getting my feet wet.
You still don't know shit.
I still don't know shit. That's actually valid. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, even as a complete idiot, I see a lot of problems here because they're spending all this time, all this money, and all this effort to make their oil cleanliness, world class. But then they've got a transfer pump that they're using to pump the barrels into the tanks. They're not flushing it between transfers. So, you're getting GT350 one time, hydraulic 46 the next time, but they're not flushing it between. So you've got a bunch of cross contamination right now. They're going into the barrels, or I should say it's not contamination, but cross compatibility. We'll call it going into the barrels.
It's a form of contamination.
Yeah, it is. And then they would fill the oil safe jugs, and they'd take, I don't remember, they were 2.5 gallon or whatever, those color coded oil safe containers. They'd fill those with oil, put them on a tool cart, push them out to the packaging part of the plant, which has probably 60 or 70 ripped socks, bag houses that have been, dust, 4 inches thick on everything. They'd go out, wouldn't wipe shit off. They'd pop the half-inch drain plug or the fill plug out of the top of the gearbox. All that crap would pour down in there. And then they'd open the top of the jug up out in the field and pour it into a smaller bottle so the nozzle would fit in the hole. And it's like, why did we spend all of this time maintaining cleanliness of because you literally maintained, aside from the transfer pump issue, take that out of the equation for a moment, they maintained pretty good oil not just cleanliness, but just kept it, I don't know what you want to call it, but they would keep it pretty well under wraps until 5 seconds before it went into the machine. And then everything was out the window. And in their mind, hey, we're doing a great job because we bought, a Y2K filtration pump.
Yeah.
It's like, good for you. That's the other thing. We say KPIs aren't best practices. Guess what? Neither are tools. Because you've known my dad long enough. One thing that I took from him, and I'll guarantee you right now, there ain't a whole lot of, no, not a whole lot of things, but I've taken a handful of things from my dad over the years. And one thing is a phrase that he always uses, which is a sharp tool don't make you a surgeon. And I truly believe
all
that.
The time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you listened about as well as I did, didn't you? But I truly, honest to God, believe that. You can go out and spend a boatload of money on the right equipment, the right tools. But just because you buy the stuff doesn't mean you're world class or, for that matter, even hit the benchmark. you
You can misuse any tool.
they're like, yeah, we just spent
Best
all the
tool, but if you're not using it right.
yeah, we just spent all this money on water filtration or these water separators for our oil. Well, fantastic, but you're pumping it out of a sump pump. Who gives a shit?
Right.
You know, so I'm assuming you probably see a fair amount of those people are doing 80 to 90% of things perfect, but they're fucking the
Comes
other
down to
10% up so bad it's worthless.
it comes down to just, being somewhat passionate about what you do, putting the right
Yeah.
Yeah.
people in the right jobs. I mean, I remember when they'd hire, an oiler is what they would call them, and they wouldn't pay them shit. And they
Yeah.
expected them to be the number one person going out there taking care of the equipment.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they started
They weren't
switching that
vested.
around and started paying the oilers a little bit more. And then all the millwrights wanted to be an oiler
What
because there
would
was
be an
just a little
oiler?
bit more money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we had change some things around a little bit, but it really just depends on the person. I mean, I had a guy that would go out and take samples right out of the new drums and send them in, and I'm like, nope. It was last time it was sampled, it was this color, and it was a Schaefer 220, and now it's an amber color, and yeah, that's what he was doing. He was just taking them right out of the
Color
drums.
check.
He got fired. He
Yeah.
got fired.
Yeah. Yeah. The
But
thing is, they don't think we'll notice that stuff, but just like vibe data, oil analysis data, you can tell when somebody's trying to pull one over on you. Because I know I've seen a few samples before where I was looking at this site's history of their samples, and like the trend's going along pretty steady, and then all of a sudden everything changed. But what I really noticed was in the elemental analysis, the additives were completely different. So right then I'm like, somebody either put the wrong oil in this thing, or they pulled from something that is not that thing. But I
Right.
said, I can tell. And they start looking and like, well, how can you tell? So I tell them all the stuff. Here's what I looked at. This was, you had zinc and phosphorus, certain additive things. Those were gone pretty much. And now you have all this other. That's a completely different type of oil generally when that happens. And they got to talking to the people. They got them together. And I guess it turns out that somebody had, yeah, oh, I didn't know that was a wrong machine or something like that.
Right.
But that's the whole thing. If you try to pull from a barrel to like make your job easy, which why? It's like you said. Why don't you have care about your job? That's the whole point. Why are you in it if you don't really
we
give a
used to
crap? But
we used to make fun of people like we thought they were taking vibration readings on the side of the Coke machine because none of the readings made any sense.
no, I've used that story before actually in classes before. Because
Right.
yes, I recall people trying to pull that crap.
What I've seen a lot, like
Yep.
with shaft alignment. Oh, we got smiley faces. It's
Yeah,
like I watched you do the alignment.
yeah, yeah. It's not.
Just because you leaned on it doesn't mean that it's going to last any longer now. At the end of the day, uh, and no matter what we're doing, whether it be alignment, vibration, oil, whatever the topic of the day is, if your equipment doesn't extend the mean time between failures, I don't give a shit what the result of your report says.
Yeah,
It didn't last as long. It failed, prematurely. You didn't do something right. And it could be, and it's not always necessarily a matter of the person doing the work did a bad job. Maybe there's a lot of times, and I'm sure you see this, you're not applying the correct technology
yeah,
because a
Mhm.
lot of places don't employ all of the 5 primary technologies, which I still argue that alignment and motion amplification should be 6 and 7,
I think
but
they're included in vibe.
they are.
I kind of feel like that.
They should
But
be.
I agree. Yeah.
But let's say 7 for sake of argument, but they don't have a budget, so they're not doing, for example, hey, we picked the top 3, but we're not doing vibration because of the cost associated to get into it. And there is a drastic cost and a drastic learning curve to get into vibration because um, you can, in pretty short order, get somebody who wants to make a difference and has a true grasp on that compelling need to change to accurately collect vibration data. But at the end of the day, if you don't have somebody that knows how to analyze it, it was all for naught. Unlike infrared, now, and I understand there's a lot more that goes into it, taking into consideration angles and emissivities and temps and all that. But red is hot, hot is bad. Pretty straightforward stuff. Same with ultrasound. Well, if I hear sizzling bacon, probably not a probably not a good thing. So people typically tackle the easy ones. And to me, and I don't want to say it's an easy technology, but it's an easy to implement technology. I would say ultrasound, infrared, and MLT/MLA are probably the three easiest ones to implement. Just because, just like you said, Angie, a lot of these places already have an oiler. You're not adding manpower. Let's just teach him how to do his job right.
Yeah.
Most guys already have some dipshit with a grease gun running around arbitrarily throwing grease and stuff. Let's give him an ultrasound gun and make him better at his job. So there's a lot of times these failures, I believe, will occur, but it's like, well, why did we miss this? Well, because you don't have a fucking vibe program.
Yeah.
You're not going to catch that with anything but vibe. There's a lot of things you're not going to catch with anything other than oil sampling.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to catch with anything other than infrared, whatever. There's a lot of crossover in the technologies, but none of them replace another one. That's why there's so many of them.
Right.
But I feel like I kind of got off topic on that one. Sorry. I get very passionate about this shit sometimes.
You're correct. I mean, we had every technology I think that we could use, and I think sometimes it was overkill until they figured out, we don't really need to do that on this equipment, and we really need to, change our thought process on things. But, it kind of came down to criticality. Do we really need to change the oil every year? Do we really need to sample that oil every month? Once you get a trend, then maybe you can back it off to quarterly. It all depends on the criticality. It all depends on the condition of the equipment. If it can go 3 months and everything's good and normal, then maybe you can back it off a little bit. But, we started out, sample your equipment, monthly, quarterly if it wasn't so critical, every 6 months if it was, I don't know, you had a spare on the shelf and you could throw the gearbox away or whatever it was, A lot of times we would just take the sample just to make sure they were putting the correct oil in it.
Yeah. Well, it's like I tell people too, which I'm glad you brought up criticality, first of all, because a lot of people, doing this training, the various different technologies and things, it's easy to get lost in the weeds and think, because I've seen both sides of things where they do no training, they maybe buy a data collector or some kind of an infrared camera or whatever, but they never train anybody, or they train a guy and then he leaves, and then it sits on the shelf and it's not being used.
Sharp knife.
But exactly. But point being is that like the training that goes with it's very important. Because without that, you can misuse these tools. And then back to the criticality thing, not everything needs to be on route. You're absolutely right. When I do classes, I usually talk about the PDF curve. It's my favorite. The PDF curve.
Fucking PDF curve.
And then we talk about the 4 maintenance strategies. And, reactive, preventive, predictive, and proactive. But it all goes back to that criticality. How you decide which of these strategies you're going to use to maintain your equipment really depends on the criticality of your equipment. And if you don't know that, if you don't have a good criticality assessment done on your machines, how do I know which one is this one going to take the entire plant down? Too many people, when they hear criticality, they think, oh, it's the cost of the machine. This is a cheap machine. It's low criticality. That can be completely.
That's about 20%.
You could have a 5 horsepower motor that if it goes down, shuts the entire freaking plant down. And usually, as you know, where we worked, I don't remember the figures exactly, but I remember hearing one time they said, this is our loss per hour out the door when we're down.
Yeah.
And it was ridiculous. I don't remember the exact number, and I don't know if you do either,
It's
but
probably
30, 40, and that's what I was saying, $30,000-$40,000 every hour. So I'm like, I don't care if the thing only costs $500 to replace it. If it's causing us 40 to 50, whatever $1,000 per hour to get it back up and going, it's critical. So, and criticality is important.
And you're completely right, Brett. The criticality is a massive implication of what we're applying, but also in conjunction with that, I would say we also need to look at, because if we're not doing failure mode effects analysis, we don't know that we're applying the correct technology to address the failure modes that could take us to functional failure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you could have something that literally the most critical asset in your plant, and we're doing oil sampling on it. I'm not poking fun at oil sampling at all. Sometimes that's not the technology you need.
Yeah.
and they're doing oil sampling on it. Well, all it is, the reservoir for the cooler for the lube pump or something like that. That's not going to take you to a functional failure if that fails.
Right.
It's going to create excessive heat, excessive amp draw, things like that, but it's not going to take you to a functional failure. You need to make sure you're applying the correct technologies based on your FMEAs.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always thought that criticality, albeit incredibly important, FMEAs are, the jelly to the peanut butter.
Yeah.
You got to have them together.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people apply the wrong technology because, just like I mentioned, we're going back to, we're applying the technologies we have at our disposal because we might not have bought into all of them. Maybe we have, a little iPad-based vibration overall collector, and we've got some vampire pumps and some sample bottles. That's all we got. Well, good luck catching a loose lug on an MCC bucket.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. We got to, I don't care what the criticality ranking is. If you're not applying the right technology to it, you're shooting yourself, pardon the terminology, you're shooting yourself in the dick. I mean, really, that's all there is to it.
Real crude.
It was a little crude. And Angie, I apologize. I probably should
I
have.
can't take this guy
Heard it
anymore.
all.
I
I
probably
haven't
should
been able to
Really?
be in this industry for 30 years.
I think
That's
you
nice.
probably got some pretty thick skin, don't you?
Yeah,
Uh,
I
well,
know. The site that we were both
Skin
on, I
thinner.
know could be you had to have thick skin or you were in trouble.
But I heard you were back in Iowa last week and we didn't get a call.
She told me, but
no,
she
and
said
I
she didn't want
I
to see
should have
us.
thought about it.
Oh, she told you. She didn't tell
No.
me.
Well, I think she told us. I don't know. Anyway,
Were you in Ottumwa?
I was in Ottumwa and, visiting my parents. And I'll tell you what,
Okay.
things change every year, when I go
Don't
home.
they?
And I actually got to tour a little bit in Albia too, and so much had changed. And
I haven't been there in a while.
it's weird.
Yeah.
Did you by chance drive through downtown Ottumwa after the sun went down and see the Pink Pony Club up on the hill?
Yes.
Also known as the
Oh.
competition gym
Yes.
that the high school put in. Okay. Yeah, I haven't quite figured out I'm trying to be nice about this, and I think it's great that they did that because it's an awesome addition to the school district. It's an awesome addition to our town, but it's like, why did we light it up like a strip club? Because that's exactly
cool.
what it looks like
Yeah.
getting up on that hill.
It's cool.
I mean, because I was out, well, you know where Brett lives.
Because
And-
again, yeah.
Yeah, I left Brett's house and I popped off that, whatever that road is, the paved road that comes out on the old Eddyville Road.
Yeah.
And when I turned onto that road coming back from your house the other night, you could see the high school gym from there. It's like 9 miles,
Yeah.
10 miles probably. And I'm like, it's
It's a bit much.
We're taking this a bit too extreme, but I know downtown's looking great. They've been doing a lot of awesome stuff around here. They're really stepping up. And,
the bridge, just everything lights up with the bridge center. Everything's pink,
Yeah.
like pink lights
Yeah.
everywhere.
and I
Change
did
the
find out, I feel bad because I was giving him shit about doing that. It was for Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Oh.
So I felt kind
Okay.
of bad about giving him shit, but it's like, did we have to use neon pink?
Well, I forgot.
You know, it's-
It was
They can
neon
change they got multiple color options, don't they?
They do.
That's what I
Because like the school, but even
I
the
was gonna say,
school
'cause I
was,
thought it was red the last time I seen it.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times it's
They got the school written like red and white for the Bulldog colors, but then
Mhm.
right like attached to it with a skywalk, and then it's pink, and it's like,
Right.
yeah, a little consistency would be nice. But no, I think it is great they're doing all those things. But the whole point I brought this up is my feeling was hurt. I have one, and you heard it
He-
because
he
you
does
didn't
not.
you didn't tell me you were back.
He does.
You and Brett and I could have went out and grabbed a drink.
I'm sorry. Next
Mhm.
time I will. Promise. Of
I hope you
course,
do
you guys
because
probably will be traveling or something.
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
pretty good chance of one of us will not be here.
that's true. So circling back to the lube stuff, I did have a question too that was kind of wanting to know so seeing all these oil samples, what would you say is the main thing that you see like result wise? Like, is it high particle count? Is it iron in the oil? what viscosity changes? What do you think you see the most of looking at all these different machines?
Higher particle counts. That's
Figure.
truly, I'd say, probably 80%. Um,
Yeah.
you
So,
know, if there's wear going on, it could be break-in wear. We really need to know, how old's this equipment been here?
yeah.
We
Yeah.
try to get as much information as we can on the equipment. When we start doing the oil analysis, the more information we have, the better the recommendations are. But
Yeah.
yeah, we get a lot of, just dirty oil. The
Yeah.
viscosity's fine. The wear metals are fairly low or none at all. And it just
Hmm.
needs cleaned up. And if they don't take care of that and they don't get the particles out of there, then they will have wear metals. And that's
Yeah.
how it's generated. It's abrasive wear. So
Oh,
that's what
that's
I
cool.
preach.
Keep it
I'm sure
clean.
that's what you preach in your training. Yeah, keep
Yeah.
it clean, keep it
Yeah. I
dry,
mean,
keep it running, put
well,
the right oil in
dry.
it.
Yeah, that's another good example too. Dry. It's
She
surprising.
just said keep it running.
Oh.
Now we have to pay Lou Deca.
Oh man.
Damn it! Now we have to give Lou Deca money because you just said keep it running.
You know what? They can't just take that from every conversation. Anyway.
They'll find a way.
But no, you're right. Actually, bringing up the moisture thing, a lot of times when I'll do the classes and I show them that, it can be less than 1% water in oil can reduce the bearing's life like drastically. Um, and it's really surprising to people. And usually what I get though is people are like, nah, you're whatever. Like we have water and oil all the time and our machines run fine. And it goes back to every conversation I think we've had, maybe even on this podcast multiple times, but it's people's acceptance level of failure. Because,
Mhm.
okay, you get a year out of that bearing. Good for you. Is that good or bad? Well, I would think if you're changing it every year, couldn't we do better than that? But that's the whole point is some of these people, they get to that level of acceptance of failure that they're like, no, we do. Yeah, we're doing good. I'm like, are you? But could you be doing better? Because if I did remove that water from all that oil that you have, would you go from 1 year to 5 years to 10 years maybe? It's possible, but that's what it is hard. It's like being a kid. We're so short. Uh, we look forward maybe an hour or a day. We don't look very far into the future as kids, but somehow some of our maintenance guys get into that role too, to where they're like, I just need to fix stuff now. They're in firefighting mode and it's hard to get out of it. I understand it, but they're like, you know what? I won't have to deal with this till next year. Yeah, but what if you didn't have to next year? What if we put this off another 2 years? And that's the whole thing. All these little things that we talk about that might seem like we're just nitpicking and we're like splitting hairs, they all add up. It's like doing an air leak survey. If
Okay.
you've ever done one of those, you can find one little leak and be like, that's tiny. Here's how much money you
It's
lose
only
from.
$200.
Yeah,
Who
add
cares?
that up to another 1,000
Yeah,
that I just found in your plant,
right.
and you're like, oh shit, this is going to make a big difference. It's the same thing with this.
And then you have to make the determination: is there a cost effectiveness?
Yeah,
Because some of those leaks, it's like that specific leak's cost me $85 a year. It's going to cost me $6,000 to
to fix
fix it.
exactly. Yeah,
Let the fucker leak.
exactly.
I'll be the first one to tell you to just let it leak. But
Yeah,
yeah, and I think, but you're right. Acceptance of failure is a huge issue. And when we look at these systems, we'll take a gearbox, for example. Well, what's the LD50 of the gearbox? Well, we can determine what that is, but now we have to factor in what's the reliability of the gearbox so we can extend it. And a gearbox is a series system. And we all know that reliability drops through a series system the more components you add, right?
yeah,
So when we start adding that all up, there's a lot of components in there.
yeah.
And like you can attest to, you got gears, but you also have sacrificial gears. So where's your wear particle count? Is it bronze or is it steel? Because if it's steel, it's about ready to shit the bed. If it's bronze, we throw a $40 gear in it and we go back to town, So
Yeah, maybe.
well, maybe
Yeah.
if it doesn't grenade through the wall first, but
One of the
Well,
things.
oil's not cheap either.
Yeah,
no,
that's true.
and it's only getting worse and worse. Um, well,
Mhm.
Actually, speaking of the price of that, synthetic versus just a regular oils or mineral oils or whatever. I don't know if you're probably like me. I mean, I know sampling processes and I know oil analysis techniques and things like that, but I don't purchase oil. Do you happen to know in your field, are you seeing, I guess I want to ask you what you think the price is, because I don't know either. But what I would ask is percentage wise, mineral versus synthetic, what's coming through your lab? Do you still see more mineral oil being used right now? Or is there surprisingly a shift to most people going synthetic?
I think they're mostly synthetics out there
Oh,
is what people are going through. We were at a location doing some training, and this guy wanted me to look at his oil report. And I said, well, it doesn't look too bad. And I said, well, what are you doing to the equipment? And he's like, well, we just change out the oil. And I said, well, how big's the reservoir? Well, it's 60 gallons. So I started looking up that lubricant that they're changing out every month, and it was $100,000 just for a
oh
55
my
gallon drum of
gosh.
oil.
And they were changing that
Or maybe,
monthly?
I'm sorry, it was 10,000. I'm sorry, it was
Well,
10,000, and they were changing it out monthly. So that's where it
oh
added up
my
at the end of the year,
gosh.
and I'm like, that's a lot of money.
That's
And
that's insane.
and after looking at the type of oil that they were putting in it and looking at the report, they had their the alarm limits weren't right for the type of moisture because it was a type of oil that had glycol in it, so it absorbed moisture is what it did.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it could withstand up to I don't know 300 500 parts per million of water
Okay.
and be okay. But they were changing it because that oil lab said you got water, you need to change it. So
Oh my gosh.
you have to know what type of lubricant you're dealing with too.
Yeah.
And a lot
Yeah.
of people don't. That's not what they do. They just do what the oil lab tells them to do.
Yeah.
But if you're not getting the right data, and maybe the oil lab didn't know, maybe they didn't know what kind of lubricant that was. But I'm a I am one for looking up product data sheets. And when things come in and I don't know what type of oil it is, it's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
either
I could see that.
call the customer, or I'm looking it up online or whatever. If
Yeah.
maybe it's a new type of lubricant and we've never tested it before. I'm
Yeah.
looking up everything I can on it because you don't want to sit there and tell them to change the oil when they don't need to.
Yeah. So I've got a couple things I always, even in vibe classes, like if we get extra time, they're just things I picked up from doing the lubrication thing over the years and having all the data that I've looked at and doing all the trainings and stuff. There's like a handful of things that I always try to give out, tidbits of information that I'm like, this might surprise you, but here's some things to take. Even if it's a vibe class, if it's what doesn't matter what class it is, I always give these out as pointers because it's something I never knew. And when I found out, I was like shocked. But one of them is, which I'm glad you mentioned that, was like the different types of oil and things, but the additives. Because I always remind people there are certain additives, like EP additives especially, certain types, not all of them, but certain types of EP additives that can soften yellow metals. So you get, if you don't do this research and find out for sure if this is compatible with the gears that you have in your gearboxes, you can wipe those gearboxes.
Mhm.
And we saw that happen.
Yes,
So it does happen. So that's one of the
we learned
points I
the
always
hard
give
way.
out. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've seen that
Yeah.
happen. So, another one is, of course, with greasing. Uh, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I am a firm believer that if we're out greasing, if it's anything high speed anyway, or electric motors of any type, it should be a manual lever action grease gun.
100%.
If it's battery operated, and here's the reason why, because I spent my time in the field doing some greasing. If I'm pulling a trigger and on a battery operated gun, and it's plugged, I don't feel the back pressure. When I'm using that lever action pump, if it's plugged, I feel it. I can stop and say, we need to fix this. I've also even been able to, it's not as easy, but when we have some of the fan bearings that are enclosed in, guards, shaft guards and things like that, so we pipe out the little grease zerks out to the side and we have poly tubing. I've also pumped in one, felt a certain amount of back pressure, pumped in the other, and it just went so easy. I'm like, I think we got a broken line here. It's just spitting grease
They
Well,
out.
just
you could have
So
busted the
been
plug loose.
you could have been putting grease in a grease zerk on a motor that it didn't even have anything to grease.
I know, right? Well, I've seen that happen before too. Some of the motor rebuild
It's
shops
like, why
we've
is all this
we've come
grease on the
across.
ground? Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
Well,
know.
or it won't go in. It's plugged, and then you talk to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we put sealed bearings in that." Well, maybe we should mark that or pull the grease zerks off of there. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's things that happen.
I
But
never could
those are
understand
2
why they
points.
ship the motors with the grease zerks.
Yeah, I know. If you put sealed bearings in it, why don't we just pull those off?
Well,
But
and a lot of times that happens at rebuild too.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Most of the rebuild shops,
because
that's what happens. Yeah.
because and another to your point, Brett, and you're completely right. So you've got lever action and pistol action when it comes to manual. And a lot of times with the pistol action grease guns, you've got a high pressure and high volume setting on them. Now, on the lever actions, I've never been a big fan of using lever action grease guns when I'm greasing, like doing a motor grease route, just because you have to have two hands to run them.
Right.
And I typically have an ultrasound
Yeah.
tool in my other hand. So I'll use the pistol grip ones. But there's a lot of times, to your point, you snap that trigger on your 20-volt DeWalt grease gun, which works great for greasing a fifth wheel plate on a semi or the pin bearings on the bucket of your Bobcat or something like that.
Head and tail bearings on conveyors that are slow speed
100%.
anyway, and we don't care if we
Or if you're
much.
purging motor bearings.
Exactly.
It works,
yeah.
as long as you're doing it in increments and not all at once. But if you're using one of these pistol grip or lever action ones, there's a lot of times if you're using ultrasound, a quarter pump was enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially on an electric motor. They don't take a lot of grease. And you can't physically snap that trigger on that battery grease gun and let off of it quick enough to put a small enough amount of grease.
And they should have back pressure valves on them to where if there's too much pressure, it comes out. But I just looked at some the other day. I think it was at Harbor Freight just to see, because like doing the classes all the time. Yep, exactly. So
we all know those are the top.
But looking at those, I thought I'm going to look on the outside of this and see if it says what its back pressure relief is. Didn't say anywhere, so I have no idea.
Right.
And that brings me back to the point of, and I should have clarified, not necessarily just lever action, but
just manual
grease gun, right. Because I can feel that back pressure. But the other point I was going to make about that was that's the other thing I get across to people is a point that if you've got people out lubricating, they're using manual grease guns or whatever, these grease guns can generate up to 15,000 psi.
Is it that much?
It's very high, yes. 15,000 psi, which I've seen some studies. One of the companies I worked for actually did a study internally, I think. I don't know how they did it, but they were checking how much pressure it took to like break or bend the cage in a rolling element bearing. And it was only, most of them were 400 psi. That's all they could take. They would either break or bend. So if I'm using a 15,000 psi grease gun and I give it a full pressure, I'm just trying to hurry through the PM and let's get that grease in as fast as we can. I could possibly bust the cage on that thing. And now the life of that thing just was cut in half, quarter, third, who knows?
Probably more than that if you're breaking cages. Things don't typically last very long.
Exactly.
That's pretty crazy. Now, I've heard of breaking seals, but I don't know if I've ever seen any
breaking a bearing cage. I know.
I'm sure
and I don't know if I've seen it happen like personally or anything. But anyway, those are some of the main things I usually try to get across to people, just some, because I think it's a fairly misunderstood. I guess the last one other thing I'm going to say is the compatibility. Grease compatibility. There's no nationally recognized color coding for grease. As a matter of fact, you can order grease in any color you want for any type of grease you have. So I always want to get that point across too, is just because this is a red grease and this is a red grease, they could be completely incompatible. And actually at one of the places I worked at, they had a night crew that was changing bearings, and the lubrication guys were not on nights. They were just days. So they're like, well, we just changed these bearings. Hey, Joe, go grab a grease gun. Let's fill this thing full of grease before you take off.
Grease is grease.
They did, grease is grease. They grabbed a Polyrex EM, which, if you look at the compatibility chart, one of the most incompatible greases with everything else. It's compatible with itself. That's about it. They put it in there by morning.
It's not even compatible with Polyrex or Polyurea shear stable.
You're right.
It's incompatible with its own carrier. So yeah.
No. But anyway, point being, by morning, those brand new bearings were, I think they said 190 degrees Fahrenheit. They were shot already. So those are points I like to get across. Is there any that I didn't mention that you also, that you think is really important? Just quick facts for people too.
One thing that came to my mind when you were talking about, incompatibility and just grabbing, any old grease gun. You can get different grease zerks, right? And you can get those, that particular, electric motor grease, and where it will only fit that grease zerk on the motors. And then everything else is, your general purpose or whatever they're using. So you could, switch those up to where that kind of issue doesn't happen. But,
great point.
That is a fantastic.
And actually, I have seen people do that.
To do the work.
Yeah. So hydraulic grease fittings, the typical grease nipple, whatever you want to call it. And then there's the button head, which, well, there's others, but those are the two major.
Push on, pull on.
But I have seen where they just put the button head on their motors for exactly the point you just made, so that we can't put the wrong stuff.
See, and that's something that I've never seen actually used in practice.
I've seen it.
And now, and I was aware there's multiple styles of grease fittings out there. But now that you mention it, Angie, I just learned something from you. That's fantastic. I've never seen anyone
Well, I'm glad I
actually
showed
do
up.
that. No, I'm glad you showed up too, because I'm going to start preaching that to people when I do these ultrasound classes.
It
Because
is.
a lot of times they're wanting to do ultrasonic lubrication, and they've asked, well, how can we prevent, the don't give a shit side of things?
Yeah.
Um, which my solution is always train them, and the people that don't take to it, fire them. So that's probably not the best way to go about it.
All right.
I like yours. You completely you can't put the wrong grease in it.
Angie
Well,
just,
now sure you could put the wrong tube in the wrong gun,
yeah,
but it's going to take a workaround.
which they do make clear-bodied grease guns. Have you guys seen?
I have seen
I
those.
I love that
Harbor
because
Freight,
I don't care if you put a sticker on the outside saying what it is. Some idiot can still put the wrong tube in there.
right?
So if you have a clear one, I can see it. But anyway, Angie, does your company, do they
Oil
make
Safe
any of
offers
this?
those.
Okay.
Oil safe.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Does your
Well,
company, because you said
so
sales, do you guys sell stuff too, like products?
Give yourself a shameless plug while we're here. Let's do it.
so we have our Lubriguard division that we provide solutions for, and we are probably, we're a desk case distributor. We're a
Okay.
distributor for many companies, but especially desk case, oil safe. So these are the things we recommend to the customer and provide those
Mhm.
items, if it's needed. So anywhere from sampling and to filtration to oil containment to you name it, we do it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah, desk case I know historically have had tons. That's the place to go if you're not sure where to get lubrication stuff.
Yeah,
That's
desk.
generally the place to go.
They're desk and breathers, and there's a couple companies out there that I've worked with over the years. Desk Case is they're the industry standard. Everybody knows the name. It's kind of like why people still refer to ultrasound as UE,
Yeah.
even though it's not.
mhm.
Yeah.
Desk Case, they're great. I mean, I've worked with a few other companies. I've worked with TTI before. TTIs, they're awesome to deal with too. And I'm not, pitching you should buy one, not the other. That's not what this podcast is about. I just want people to know there are,
Yeah.
excuse me, solutions out there. Um, and a couple things that I wanted to quickly mention. One thing that I'll back up a little bit. We were talking about the compatibility of polyurea grease.
Mhm.
Just so everyone, I'm sure you guys have heard it 1,000 times, but people out there listening might not have. The old adage, polyurea plus anything equals diarrhea.
Haven't heard put so elegantly, but
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I
think
tell
I've
people
heard
honest
that
with
one.
that.
I tell people all the time, polyurea plus anything
Are they
equals
eating it
diarrhea.
or what?
No, I don't know what it
Well,
tastes.
it
Well, hold
probably
on.
breezes
Brett's
the
the
same
one that's
way.
always trying to taste shit. If you listen to some of the previous podcasts, Brett's always like, we
They
need to
say
use
five
our
cents.
5 senses. And it's like, no,
Okay.
you need to use
4.
4 of them. If you're other tasting shit, you need to stop.
Hey,
You can listen to it. You can look at
I
it.
think I could taste some oils and know if it's gone bad.
You,
Now, will I get cancer later? That's a different
right.
question. I don't know, but
Is this olive or canola? I can't tell the difference,
ooh, the
man.
oxidation level in this one's pretty high.
And then we also, and this is a shameless plug for us, we also, through Reliability, if you want to shoot us an email, we have a grease compatibility chart that we're happy to send to anybody for free that we've made up. It's our own, it's just based off things we've learned through industry, and
You
it
still
shows,
have to be careful with that.
thank you.
Yeah,
I just
they're
I
all
recommend that
because
if you're going to mix greases,
I generally just
and
tell
if
people
it's not the
no.
same product, no, just purge it out, clean it out, and
Yeah.
refill it with whatever you need to put in it, because compatibility tests, they're expensive. They're about
Oh,
two
yeah.
thousand dollars or
oh
more.
wow.
Yeah,
Hey, but you're in sales, so that's a
it's
good
just a
thing
lot
for
of
you, right?
manual labor involved with that.
Sure.
Well,
And I'll ask
I'd
you
rather tell them
one,
to do the right thing than to spend the money on testing. But
try to teach him to, what's a workaround. Um, so one question I did want to ask you, and this is it's a specific question that I think anybody who's ever turned a wrench or a screwdriver in their life on anything, and this is more of an automotive thing, but it's always baffled me, the people that don't fully understand it. When we talk about 10W30, for example, or 5W40 or whatever, tell us about the W. People like to know this.
It's not what you think it would be.
Stands for
And I want to
winter.
hear it right from the expert.
Yeah, yeah. She said it stands
Yes,
for
it stands
winter.
for winter.
Isn't that dumb? But I
Yeah,
mean,
Hmm.
that's what it stands for. Everybody always, when I ask the question, they always say, "Oh, it's weight."
right.
I'm like, I know.
And you would think, but
Everybody
it's
thinks
winter.
it's not. It's winter.
So a 10W30 oil means specifically what?
Do
So
you want to do
your
it or no?
10 is your lower temperature. Your 30 is
Oh,
your higher temperature.
okay.
If you say 10W30, yeah.
Yeah, 10W30.
So, and
That's
then,
just an
you look
example.
at your SAE crankcase viscosity of what it should be. You guys have
Mm,
seen those viscosity, charts
yeah,
out there to where you can kind of
Yeah.
go across. Most generally, they're pretty accurate, but sometimes it could be a little higher or lower depending on the product, is from what I
sure.
can tell. Um, but definitely something to use and go by. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
if you're using a crankcase, they usually will say right on your, where you put your oil of what type of oil to put in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you're, I guess,
Yeah.
hanging out in Canada and you need something a little bit, thicker. But
Yeah, you need -40 W -20 up there.
And that always bothers me too
yeah,
well, sorry, I was jumping off, but it just made me think of something that irks me as well is when we've got on the cap, it says, here's what you should use. They've done testing. They've determined this is what's best for this engine. Yet people are always like, well, yeah, but could I use this?
Right.
I'm like, okay, maybe, but why? First of all, why do you want to change it?
Well,
And
and
there's
it,
reasons to. So
it,
it's sometimes that is a legit thing, but people sometimes just I've had people ask me like, well, my motorcycle it says it should be this, but a buddy of mine said I could just use transmission fluid and everything. I'm like, but why? He's like, I don't
right.
know, just so I have one oil. I'm like, is it really that hard to go get another one though? But
Well, and coming from the automotive industry, like I did prior to this, I can attest to this, and I don't necessarily know the science behind it, but I can tell you just generally, a lot of these newer vehicles, the variable valve timed engines, the cam actuators are oil pressure activated, and if you don't run the correct viscosity
oh,
oil in them, the cam actuators won't actuate
huh,
because it's too high or too low of viscosity,
yeah,
and the things start advancing or retarding themselves, and they knock like hell.
huh,
And they'll throw check engine lights. I mean, they'll still run. It's not going to blow the motor up, but they run like shit if you run the wrong viscosity.
did not know that. That's
So
interesting.
something to just keep in mind. It's not so much the journal bearings and the crank and the typical things you think about with engine lubricant. It's the cam actuators get
Yeah.
all dicked up. But um, so Brett and I typically towards the end of these things, because we don't like to run them on forever. Because as much as I love talking to you, not everyone loves listening to me. So we have to, call. Fuck
Oh,
you,
sorry.
Brett. We have to call time of death at some point on these. But we always like to ask a couple questions on the way out, and these aren't they're kind of related to your job, but kind of not. So my question is always to people like, give us a little background on you, like you're born where, you go to school where, you graduate high school where, and then how do you get to where you are now? Give us a little Angie backstory.
Oh, well, so from Atomo, Iowa, and I started working at the Cargill Field plant in, 1991. I hadn't even graduated high school yet. And
Okay.
I did a lot of different
Uh-huh.
jobs there, gained a lot of experience. Just, I mean, when I sit down and I write all the things that I did working there, it just kind of blows my mind because it was in a short amount of time. Because in 1995 is when I started working for Hub Electric Motors. And that's when I started doing vibration analysis. And it was really just going around collecting the data. And then we had, little Dave that would show us how to read the squiggly lines that we were looking at and, getting us out there and looking at the equipment when they were tearing it apart. And
Mm,
it was a lot to learn, and then we started going to training. And really, you got to have a good year out there doing that type of work before you can go to training to even completely understand what they're talking about. So,
right.
from there it went from, gosh, we got into vibration, then thermography, and then oil analysis, and it's like, damn, we got to be certified in all of these, and we can't
Sure.
really get really good at one of these. So then that's about when Allied came in, you know. We switched hard hats and then everybody was kind of put into their own element, like that technology that they wanted to get really good at. And I don't know if I really wanted to do oil. I think I was just thrown at it because nobody else wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, here I am. I'm passionate about it. You know, I've
Yeah.
learned a lot. There's always something to learn in this field of what we do, and there's a lot of shit that I don't know. And I'm just glad I've got a lot of people, you know, behind me that I can ask those questions to.
Yeah, and I rely on Brett probably more than he would like to admit that he does, because even like what was it? It was it last week. I was or no, it was Monday.
Yeah.
I was at a customer site and I was doing some vibration training for them, and I was looking at some data, and I'm like, this is. I had some weird modulation at this odd speed, and I had to call Brett, and I'm like, dude, you got a second, man? I need a second opinion on this. And it's always nice to have those people to, you know, lean back on, because
You need it in this industry.
you do. Because I don't care how long you've been doing oil analysis or how long you've been doing vibration or how long you've been doing anything. You are always going to find things that you'll sit there and say, I have never seen that shit before.
Yeah.
That's a new one to me. But
Mhm.
maybe he has.
But that's why I know it's nitpicky, but for me that's why whenever somebody says, "Oh, he's the expert on this," I'm like, "No." I don't like the term just because I guess when I was growing up, the term expert was like not used lightly. It was like that term for me meant that if I asked this guy any question,
He's got the
he's got it. He doesn't have to. And but the reality is, none of us are that. I mean, we could be really good at what we do, but it's like that vibe diagnostic chart that you put up on the wall. You get a little handbook, whatever. I still, guys that
Yeah.
have been doing this 20, 30 years still will reference that thing every once in a while because you're like, I've seen the same crap over and
Well,
over and over and over. I haven't seen this one in a long time. So they'll reference that thing.
Yeah.
It's just,
and I actually got one of those books from Jason Aarons over at Full Spectrum Diagnostics. And I told him, I said, you should title this thing "In a Perfect World, dot,
yeah,
dot,
yeah,
dot."
that's true too.
Because you look at those and you're like, yeah, in a perfect world,
Yeah.
that's how the peaks line up, but it's buried in noise. You
Well,
know?
what I always remind people too is like in class, I'm like, we're showing you each individual thing, what it would do to the spectrum. But now picture six of these together because
Right.
that's reality. I've got
Yeah.
misalignment, I got a little imbalance, I got bearing that maybe are starting to go out.
This
I
is
got
a sine
frequencies.
wave.
Yeah.
My ass, that's a sine
Yeah.
wave.
In what world is that a sign? Yeah. It's just, but
It looks like an exploded Q-tip is what a
yeah.
time wave looks like.
So to piggyback off his question, my question's always the same too. But I think I know the answer. But for those who don't, is I always
I
like
didn't know the answer, Brett.
okay, well then I'm gonna go
Spoiler alerts.
But I always like to ask the question because for me, I know what it was. But the question is, what was the first predictive maintenance tool that you picked up that really got you into this, where you're like, yeah, this is what I want to do? Was it a vibe data collector? Or,
I think it was. I mean, in the beginning, yes, vibration was easier for me to relate to. I don't know. I picked up on it.
yeah,
And then, you know, thermography. I mean, yeah, it was easy to go out and see if something was burning up and what the temperature was and what it shouldn't be.
right.
Ultrasonics, they say that's one of the easiest technologies to learn. I honestly, I I managed the ultrasonics, but I never had to go out and use it.
Yeah,
Went through the training, but never had to go out and use it. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I guess I'm more into like a lot of the auto lubricators, things like that. You know, I wish more
yeah,
people would use them rather than not using anything at all.
right.
But once I got into oil analysis and looking at, it took a while because you're looking at oil. I mean, it's kind of like looking at vibration after, you know, vibration reading after vibration reading. Then you're looking at oil sample after oil sample. But there's always
Yeah,
some kind of story that it will tell you. Um, you know, I kind of like when something's messed up because I can dig into it, find out what's going
yeah,
on. I'm weird that way.
yeah. It's a mystery
But
novel in
I don't know.
itself.
I think vibration and oil analysis was my, you know, I guess my favorite tools
Yeah.
because you could
Okay.
find it pretty much right away.
Well, and I guess that's similar to mine too, because you make a good point. Is like, well, that's what maybe because like for me, I think it was the infrared camera that really got me into it. Where I'm like, oh, this is cool. I want to do this. Then I got into Vibe, and I'm like, oh, this is cool too. But you're right, though. I mean, I think I was late in the game getting into the lube world. But then when I did, I was like, I didn't think I was going to like this, but I'm like, it's kind of one of my favorite subjects to especially teach because there's so many of those things that like everybody thinks it's so easy. And then when I start showing them stuff, they're like, I had no idea that there was so much involved in this stuff. And it's not necessarily hard. For me, it was interesting, but I'm a lube geek. I love talking lube. So, and oil analysis in general, the stuff that these machines do, which if we had more time, we could go on and get deeper. And maybe we'll have to have you back later because we're already at an hour in. So we need to wrap up. But there are so many cool toys that we can use to do this oil analysis testing that just would shock people that the level at how this stuff works. It's just crazy. But
So if people need to reach out to you, plug yourself. How do they get a hold of you?
or do you want people to
Or
get?
do you want people? Yeah, no, you
Well,
don't want people getting a hold of you.
I'm busy enough, she says. Leave me alone.
If
oh
somebody
gosh.
is,
Well,
if one of
I
our,
mean, my cell
you know,
phone's out there
two
for everybody,
subscribers
so they can
just
call me on my cell
happen
phone,
to
Had a question.
have a question about, it's like, hey,
770-543-095553, or they
we
can
need some
send
help
me
with our
an email at
lubrication program, and we want somebody.
angela.borella@wearcheck.com.
There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah. So,
I just dropped
um,
it. I just dropped
Now,
it.
awesome.
Angie, I thank you very much for taking the time out of the evening to come on. And I know it's been a couple weeks trying to get everything to line up, but thank you very much for taking the time to come
Yeah.
on and talk to us. It's always nice to have somebody on. And I know Brett hates the term expert, but
She's
fuck Brett.
she's
You're an expert in this,
she's-
and it's nice to have somebody on here that, can really,
Well, I
talk
don't
the
know if
talk.
I'm an
And
expert, but I've been around for a while.
fair point.
yeah.
Well, guys, it's
Are
been
we
fun, and yeah, let's do it again because there's so much more we can
yeah.
talk about.
Are
Absolutely.
we going to be seeing you in April at the SMRP conference in Ashland?
Are they doing that this year?
We
And
are. We're
Ashland.
Ashland, Nebraska.
Yeah, because wasn't it a couple
Wait a
years
minute, is
ago
that
you were
where
out
it's going
there?
to be now? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
thinking it was somewhere else, but yeah,
so
more than
we're
likely,
still.
I'll be there.
So I've been
Cool.
talking to Eric Foreman about this a little bit. That was the whole deal. Was we had to pull the plug on that last year because of the government shutdown. Which here we are again.
Yeah.
But all those people that run that, because that's a museum essentially, and they're all federal
Right.
employees. We couldn't get a call back from them.
hmm
And Foreman was starting to get a little
That's what he was
pissed.
telling me.
And rightfully so. He's like, I
hmm
can't get anyone to answer an email. This is 5 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So I stopped by there on my way back from North Platte one day and they were closed. And I'm like, and it was sign on the door, due to the government shutdown. I'm like, well, that's probably why nobody's calling us back. All the people that worked there were furloughed. So
Yeah.
They're not
plan
there.
is we're going to pick it back up. It might be a different, vibe, and we might end up moving into a different place. I got to talk to Eric a little bit, but nonetheless, we are going to get these chapter meetings up and going again. So we hope to see you there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll buy you a beer.
I will
I
plan
think
on
they're.
doing.
And I'm
Okay,
only buying you a beer
I
because
expect
Hup
that.
always provides the beer for those
Yeah,
things. So I'll go
aren't they
I'll go
free?
grab you a beer from Ray and I'll bring it over and you can drink it. How's that sound?
All right. Well,
Perfect.
thanks,
But
Angie. Good
thank you,
seeing
Angie.
you. And yeah, maybe we'll get a chance
All
to do
right,
this
guys.
again in the future. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, you guys take care.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, we are no longer